morning. How you guys doing? Let's see here. We're going to have a podcast where we review a few things and try to break some new ground, hopefully. I'm listening to a lot of YouTubers and different people talk about what's happening in the crypto space, and a lot of it really leaves a lot more questions than as far as providing answers. I like to get answers and maybe some facts going on. And if you go to my articles and my blogs, for instance, I think I put a significant amount of effort or emphasis on accumulating facts so that you can see the numbers, so you can see the statistics and such. But I'm hearing a lot of things in the crypto space, and unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of things just don't make a whole lot of sense because they're not backed by a whole lot of facts. I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories. So let's get right into it. The topic, we're going to be looking at the role of Bitcoin and how it is permeating certain spaces, particularly certain issues going on as far as weaponization of finance and also sanctions. Now, the general consensus, if you will, has to do with Bitcoin and its role right now. Top of the list is probably sanctions. And, you hear a lot of people in the Bitcoin space talk about Bitcoin being an effective tool against sanctions. And I have a little bit of a problem with this. And I just can't find the data that seems to indicate that Bitcoin has the infrastructure or the capability of absorbing the significant amounts of fund flows going from countries into Bitcoin's infrastructure, and whether or not we have the type of capacity, if you will, to absorb that same significant amount of inflows. And right now, we seem to be in a situation where we have a lifeboat, but we don't have anything like the type of ship that's actually able to rescue, for the most part, a lot of the people who need a vessel that's really significant in size. If it's going to be like El Salvador or something like that, then we can offer some reprieve from what's going on. But even with that, we have a whole lot of work to do. One particular situation that's been highlighted right now is Ukraine and Russia. And see, the issue is this simply, the oligarchs, for instance, in Russia, those billionaires, they need to move a lot of money, okay, very quickly into something. Assets are being liquidated as we speak. Super yachts, they're at least being seized. Super yachts and mansions and such are being seized by governments from France to Germany. So that's a problem, right? If you are finding that your assets are being seized and maybe they're going to be liquidated as a consequence, it's more than likely you are going to be compelled to hurry up and do something very quickly as one of these oligarchs. And the problem with the current infrastructure of Bitcoin, it's not really suitable for the intended purpose. When you have a public ledger, for instance, like a blockchain, and you're an oligarch or whatever, some countries are saying, look, we have a problem with your place of residency and your associations with this dictator or something, and we don't want to see your money flow through this public ledger. That's going to be a problem, right? So until we get a type of technology or until we have a situation where Bitcoin and the blockchain can actually serve as a suitable mechanism for those type of significant fund flows without revealing, who and what and the how much and all that, we're probably not going to be seeing that type of uh, situation play out anytime soon. Those billionaire, multi-billionaires, they really don't want the whole world scrutinizing the blockchain to find out that they're moving tens of billions of dollars around. That's not going to happen. So I think we need to tone the rhetoric down just a little bit and look at the obvious and try and understand, when it comes to having alternatives and having choices, on a smaller scale, depending upon what you're doing with Bitcoin and the blockchain, it'll serve as a tool for some people. I think primarily citizens and such there'll probably be those will be good candidates for using Bitcoin for moving those funds around. To keep it out of the reach of the government. As long as you can quickly move it around, send money from Ukraine to the U.S. or wherever you need to send it, that's one thing. But if you're an oligarch or something like that, someone's telling you to put your money on this public ledger, and you'll be fine. You're probably gonna have to ignore that type of advice. Now what is interesting, and I don't hear a whole lot of Bitcoiners talking about it, is in regards to the weaponization of finance. Now, we're seeing to a great extent, sovereign countries. They have, the right and the privilege of doing what they want to do with their money, right? And they may want to indeed put it into Bitcoin and such. But again, if you're a Saudi Arabia or something and you're looking to, move major amounts of money onto the Bitcoin network, the question really is, can we absorb, 50 billion, 100 billion at a time without disrupting the market, right? And I know we have this OTC avenue, and that's supposed to be such that you won't have a problem. But I think we're taking for granted the type of money that ultimately needs to flow into this space, and what happens when those types of countries start actually deploying that capital. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out on why sovereign wealth funds, barring, regulatory hurdles and such that need to be tackled and then eventually resolved, right? That's one thing. But I'm talking about actual deployment of the capital itself and the infrastructure that we provide. Is it really such that makes Bitcoin, for instance, a viable alternative? Okay. Some of the choices right now where money's moving around in international markets, like via the SWIFT system or something like that, hundreds of trillions of dollars every single day or whatever, that's not an issue, right? Governments know full well that's not an issue. You can move that type of money around and rest assured that it's going to get from point A to point B, okay? But, having said that, given the current environment, Russia, for instance, is learning the hard way that even your currency and your the reserves that you parked in this country and that country, if you're Russia, you parked your foreign currency reserves here or there in this country or that country, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get access to it, particularly when there's a situation like this, where there's war or conflict or something like that. This group of countries led by the U.S. or whatever may determine or may deem your assets non gratis and thus seized and held and whatever like a bribery payment or something, or whatever. And that's not attractive. That's not good. So we have a problem, right? And we're looking for a solution. And the question is, the solution that we have in Bitcoin, is it such that it's going to be able to, again, handle the type of flows from a country like Russia, from a country like, who knows, Saudi Arabia, from whatever country, where those guys are used to moving around trillions of dollars and such. And what is that going to look like? Bitcoin's market cap, I think right now is like, who knows, $600 billion or something like that right now. But again, if we're going to provide a suitable alternative to something like Swift or whatever, we need to go back to the drawing board and find out, whether or not we're actually ready. The good news is Bitcoin has been very resilient, and the performance has been very well, considering the financial upheavals that we've been experiencing lately. We've seen some massive sell-offs because people have been panicking. Those in the traditional markets have been panicking because of news-driven events and such. And those who fled into the embrace of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, for the most part, particularly Bitcoin, I can't say the same thing for cryptocurrencies in general, but those who park their money in Bitcoin, they haven't seen issues as far as performance, security, and reliability. That's been it's been looking pretty good. Okay, the real question is, going forward, how is that going to play out when we have a situation where people really lose confidence in how United States, for instance, when the United States determined and its allies determined that you don't get to participate in international financial transactions to the extent that you that you were used to. It's interesting because China is developing their own, not only CBDC, but which they're making significant progress on, but not only the CBC, but their own network and infrastructure. I think they want to be like the AWS, the financial infrastructure, like a real competitor out there who offers not only a CBDC, but that AWS type of network or infrastructure for countries to move money around. Now, granted that not everyone trusts China, it's interesting that someone is seeing an opportunity, and if Bitcoin wants to be competitive, then that's what needs to be looked at. What happens when you have a country like China or whoever it is, and they take a look at not only a CBDC that can be used in the international community for finance, but also looking at the network itself in terms of what happens when a country decides to take a look at offering alternative to Swiss, and what are the incentives and such that are going to be deployed to get the type of adoption so that China gets a chance to see how that plays out when you have one or more countries actually using it. So that's going to be interesting. And I don't know if a lot of Bitcoiners or anyone else is looking at that as far as competing on that type of level. And but that's something that needs to be considered, because that's where we're going with finance. Countries are being put in a predicament that they haven't been in before. Money is being seized, and finance is being weaponized. And there's going to be a battle, or there is a battle right now, but there's going to be more battles on this type of level, where this country, that country, and the other one has been excluded, you know, and from the financial system in a way that they haven't seen before, you know, and these sanctions are coming in rapid fire, and we don't see that ending anytime soon. But trust me, there are countries that are paying attention to what's happening with Russia and the sanctions, and particularly because corporations all over the globe are now jumping on board. They're saying, you know what, if it's iPhones, if it's Airbnbs, if it's you name it, if it's Ubers or whatever it is, we want to go ahead and comply, right? It's the right thing to do. So again, we're dealing with a weaponization of finance on a certain level that we haven't seen before. And the question is, if you are a country that's trying to do the right thing for its people, but it just happens to be inconsistent with Western values and such or whatever, and you know, what does that look like? What are your choices? How are you going to be able to still have some modicum of normalcy in your country when everyone else is jumping on board of this latest idea of we'll just withhold products and services and everything else in an attempt to go along with the Western allies who say you're not cooperating, you're not saying the right things or whatever it is. So anyway, we're getting into some areas right now that are very interesting, and on a day-to-day basis, we're seeing how this plays out in real time. And with El Salvador and certain other Latin American countries, and even countries in Africa, for instance, as they adopt Bitcoin, the question is, we're going to see some desperate attempts at reining in the momentum gathering steam in the Bitcoin space, and as far as countries taking a look at Bitcoin as an alternative and trying to opt out. So again, I think we're going to have to make sure these companies have some tools, have some choices, have some ways of maintaining their sovereignty and their independence, while at the same time avoiding situations where, again, the sanctions and the weaponization of finance cuts you off, because we want to have choices. We want our privacy. We want a hard currency that's not being devalued. But we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where the people are getting hurt, because it's one thing to cut off oligarchs and prime ministers and presidents of states, but it's another thing to get people swept up in all of the attempts at punishment on this level, where everybody gets swept up. And another thing I wanted to address is there's been some situations, or there's been stories indicating that there's a rug pull in Ukraine in regards to donations. And I donated money to Ukraine, and I don't regret it, and I'm not going to regret it. A rug pull or no rug pull. But basically, a rug pull means that someone took money on false pretenses, and then they took the money and did something else other than what they were supposed to do. So you're misled into thinking that, you know, your money was going to be used for this or that, and then you were fooled or something like that, right? Which may or may not have happened. I don't think it happened. But I'm listening to YouTubers, for instance, talk about a rug pull, and I'm looking for the rug and the pull. And despite my attempts at getting straight answers, I'm not getting straight answers. I'm getting a lot of conspiracies. I'm getting a lot of smoking guns, but I'm not seeing anyone connect the dots. As far as I can tell, the international community overall has doubled almost the amount of money since the people on YouTube, for instance, started talking about rug pull. So somebody has confidence that there is no rug or no pull, and I haven't seen the analysis. We have companies like Chain Analysis and Eclipse and a lot of other players in the field, and they can analyze the blockchain and they can see, for instance, whether or not money is indeed making it from point A to point B. And we have the capability of using Blockchain Explorer and using addresses and searching addresses and such to see what's going on. But anyway, I haven't seen it, and maybe someone will come out with some facts or some statistics or something, or maybe even the people from Eclipse or Chain Analysis or some of these companies, maybe they'll eventually come out and verify what's going on. But look, this is the general thesis, if you will, behind donations. Anyway, if you give money to someone or some organization, you typically you gave that money because you can, and it's your prerogative, right? And hopefully, we'll do some things that are more productive as far as are efficient with cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin as compared to traditional donations and donating to organizations. We can target it a lot easier. That's for sure. But yeah, typically when you send money to Red Cross or the United Way or Salvation Army, whoever it is, that usually implies that it's going to some centralized organization, and they end up doing specifically what they want to do with the money and the manner that they want to use the money, right? If a lot of it goes to administration and it's absorbed administration, 90% of it or something, that's because that's the way they operate, right? So when you give money, I think you're being charitable and you understand the risks and such. So I don't know if Bitcoiners and such should be really crying about what's going on in Ukraine, especially absence any real facts in terms of whether or not Zelensky is actually deploying the money. Supposedly this airdrop, it was canceled because someone decided that there really wasn't going to be an airdrop after all. Supposedly there was going to be an NFT, and supposedly the NFT is going to reward people, maybe not reward people. Supposedly this was all planned. Supposedly there's speculators who took advantage of the idea there's going to be an airdrop. There's all sorts of garbage being thrown out. And again, I'm not hearing any intelligent responses. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of conspiracy theories and such. And maybe people just want something to talk about because the market is not doing very much. But look, this is the time when you use your intelligence and you do the homework and you make absolutely sure that you take advantage of these quiet periods, because we need to focus on the role of Bitcoin and blockchain and how that's going to be integrated into the financial markets and how sovereign wealth funds view Bitcoin particularly, and why they aren't deploying it in the manner that we want them to. Do they have the confidence? Do they not have the confidence? If not, what do we need to do? Because again, if we see more situations like this with Ukraine, with Russia, with El Salvador, whoever the country is, Nigeria, those people need to deploy and move very large amounts of money quickly, easily, securely, and like trillions of dollars every day. Excuse me. And if we can't fulfill that part of the deal, then we're just going to be serving smaller players, and eventually we'll lose a lot of ground, lose a lot of momentum because we're not quite ready. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there and see if we can focus a little bit more, spread a little bit less rhetoric, talk a little bit less about conspiracies, and if the dots connect, let's connect the dots. If they don't connect, then we need to do homework and make sure that the homework actually makes sense before we start speaking about a lot of these things. Anyway, guys, you guys stay safe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.